Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a good one today. I'm the Metal Junkie, and today I'm going to be ranking all 10 studio albums by the band All That Remains, including their brand new album Antifragile, which came out near the end of January this year, 2025. So this should be exciting. It's a band I've been following for a long time, since like the mid 20s, so been a fan for quite a while. I would love to hear how you rank this band's albums, or what's your favorite album, what's your least favorite. Drop all that down in the comment section. We'll have a great discussion about it, as well as liking the video and subscribing to the channel so you don't miss out on anything in the future. And without wasting any more time, let's dive in. So for me, coming into last place, I have to go with the album Madness from 2017. An album I never heard when it was released. I skipped over it at the time, and I guess I wasn't missing much. I just listened to this last week for the first time. I gave it a few spins and was not a fan. It tries to mix way too many genres, tries to do too much, Especially, this is supposed to be a melodic metalcore band, and yet they got a little bit of that in here, but there's much more like rock, there's pop influences in here, a lot of acoustic stuff, just not what not what I'm looking for when I put on an All That Remains album. I can respect that they're always experimenting and trying new things. They're not staying in the same rut, but it's not always going to work, and this is one of those cases. I heard that they made this album, like, did the vocals and lyrics first and then did the music. Perhaps that was a bad choice, because they never did that for any other album in their discography, so something went wrong. And looking at the track list here, right away it opens up with a pretty good track with Safe House. It's heavy. It actually doesn't really feel like All That Remains, given the sound of it, but it's kind of deceiving, because the rest of the album doesn't really reach that level again of heaviness anyway. Like I said, there's some alternative stuff on here, there's some rock stuff on here. There's a song, River City, which has terrible like pop beats and vocals in it, but then it has some cool metal parts later, which is a real mixed bag for me. But if I was going to make a playlist, the only songs I would keep on here are Safe House, Madness, and Never Sorry. But even those three songs would be at the bottom of my list on any other album of theirs, so it is what it is. Everything else is either mediocre or bad. Like, I really don't like the song If I'm Honest, Far From Home, and Back to You. Those songs I'll probably never return to again, if I'm being honest. Everything else is mediocre, whatever, pretty forgettable. So yeah, not a great record for 13 tracks and only 3 that I'm saving. Coming up next at number 9, I'm going with The Order of Things. Now, I actually did hear this album when it came out, and I was very disappointed. All That Remains was going on this weird journey, this weird trend where every album was getting less heavy. They were introducing much more alternative and acoustic elements, which is okay, but that is not what I come to All That Remains for. I feel like it's okay to have 1 or 2 tracks like that, like a ballad here or there, but to have half your album like that, it just doesn't work for me personally. While this one is nowhere near as bad as Madness in quality, or in terms of like all over the place music wise, it's much more tighter, but still, most of these tracks, once you hear them, you'll forget them just as quick. They're not memorable at all. And looking at the track list here, it does open with a banger. I really like This Probably Won't End Well. Pretty damn good track. No Knock's okay. But yeah, I really like Divide. The Greatest Generation's okay. But then it starts to fall apart for me. With For You is just not for me. And then the next few tracks don't do much either. But Pernicious, wow. Probably my favorite track on the album. It's a real standout for me. I listened to that so much when this album came out. So Pernicious, Bite My Tongue's okay. There's some okay tracks on here. Just nothing really standing out like the other albums that are above this. Again, Pernicious is amazing, and This Probably Won't End Well is a song that they still play to this day live. But there's songs like True, Cavult Metal, or whatever the hell you call that. That's just a dumb title and a very forgettable track. Some of the songs have cool riffs, but don't really go anywhere, or, verses I don't really care for, but cool choruses. So the whole song itself doesn't really work for me most cases with this album. Even like I said, even the title is pretty bad. The order of things, the title and the artwork, very bland, which I think tells you a lot about the album itself. Up next at number 8, I'm going with A War You Cannot Win. Now, this is a decent album. No More Failures. There's only 2 albums I don't really care for, By All That Remains. This is at the bottom of the ones I enjoy, but I do enjoy it. It is the start of the decline in quality, I feel. This album, you can tell there was something off. They were going a little bit more alternative. There was a little bit more radio-friendly tracks on here, just a bit more accessible than what we heard before. But it still has a good mix of the metalcore tracks that we came here for. And looking at the track list here, the first 4 tracks are actually banging, like really good. Even stand up for being a more accessible track. I think it's really well made. But then we hit Asking Too Much at number 5, and oof, I do not like this track at all. I don't like the whiny vocals. It almost sounds like a boy band at this point. I really don't like it. So yeah, that's the first track I hate on here. But yeah, the first 4 are friggin' so good. Just Moments in Time again picks it up again, but then it comes back with What If I Was Nothing. Not a track I hate, but definitely not one I return to all that much. Again, it's getting very radio at this point. Yeah, and the end of this record's where it starts to fall apart for me. The B side, if you will. Everything from What If I Was Nothing on is either forgettable or just not my thing. There's certain songs like A War You Cannot Win, which has kind of like anthem hockey vibes to it, something you can hear playing at a sports arena. But again, just not something I'm putting on personally. So a decent album. The first half is pretty damn amazing with very few flaws, but the second half really starts to show its true colors. And again, this is the album where you start to see them change directions and go for that more accessible type music. Coming up next at number 7, I'm going with Behind Silence and Solitude, the debut album from All That Remains. An interesting record because it sounds nothing like anything else they put out. It's very different. It's not even metalcore. This is much more in line with melodic death metal, to be honest. Like if you pair this with like early Arch Enemy from the 90s and stuff like that, it lines up much more with that than it does with metalcore, which is interesting. It's not bad at all. I just feel like it really lacks any standout tracks. Like almost every song is very close in quality for me, where it's all like, yeah, that's pretty good, but none of it really reaches epicness, but at the same time, it doesn't really dip too low, if you know what I mean. And before I get into the track list here, I just want to say Phil on vocals, he definitely grew a lot over the years. Just even after this album, he was so much better. He got that typical death metal growl going on here, but I've heard it done better. It's not the worst thing I've ever heard or anything, but you know that he can do so much better on the later albums here, and there's no clean vocals on here, I believe, so I can't really judge him on that. But yeah, the harsh vocals could have been a bit better for my personal taste, but they serve the songs. Like I said, this is a melodic death metal album at the end of the day. And yeah, there's a few tracks I enjoy more than others, but they're mostly all pretty close in quality. From These Wounds, Erase Shading, and One Belief seem to be the ones that I enjoy most. Pretty good guitars in here. I think the biggest problem is the songwriting. Could have been much more tighter. It doesn't exactly have like the hooks to keep you coming back. So yeah, a decent debut, that's for sure, but I'm glad the band went into a different direction after this. Up next at number 6, I'm going with Victim of the New Disease, their 2018 record and the last record to feature Ollie on guitars. Unfortunately, he passed like a month or two before this record was going to be released, unfortunately. And it made for a real messy release of this album, whether we're talking about the marketing and everything about it. I guess I had a real hard time with it. The band stated in many interviews that, of course, the death of Ollie was a big thing, but they had many, many issues and flaws, whether we're talking about the label and such. A big reason why they went independent on their new record. And yeah, this record definitely put the band in the right direction. It kind of really surprised me the first time I heard it, because it is damn heavy, very heavy. Some songs on here are the heaviest that they ever done, if I'm being honest. In particular, Fuck Love, Blood I Spill, and Wasteland. And even the title track, the last track, Victim of the New Disease. Crazy breakdowns and just this was produced, I think, by Acacian Strain, the Acacian Strain, one of the guys from that, and that makes sense because this sounds almost deathcore like at times, the heaviness of it. So that was real interesting and a change from the radio friendly and accessible songs that they were writing on the last few albums. I thought it was a great direction to go in to get the fans back. Unfortunately, I think a lot of fans already checked out at this point. And yeah, it's just too bad because it's a pretty good, damn good record if you ask me. It's very solid. Again, the first half is pretty incredible. Like I said, very heavy tunes. You got songs like Misery and Me, which really reminds me of Killswitch Engage, from the riff to the pre-chorus. Very Killswitch Engage, that track. I'm not a fan of Just Tell Me Something. It's another one of their slower, like, acoustic type tracks featuring Danny Warsnop. But yeah, that one really does nothing for me. And it's not just because it's a slower track or whatever. Alone in the Darkness is not like a crazy heavy track, but I think that one's pretty damn good. Not good enough to give the thumbs up, but not getting a thumbs down anyway. So yeah, just an album I felt like got overlooked due to all the circumstances surrounding it. But if you haven't checked it out, definitely give it a shot because there's some heavy ass tracks on here. Up next at number 5, I'm going with For We Are Many. Now it's getting real tough to rank these, or the albums are getting very tight in quality with each other for my personal taste anyway. So this one could go number 5, could go number 4 for me, just to let y'all know, but pretty damn great record. Looking at the songs, I feel like it's a bit more heavy than what we got in Overcome, the previous record to this. Which was a nice little change. Even though Overcome had its heavy moments, this one definitely felt like, okay, we're getting heavy again, especially with the opening track, Now Let Them Tremble. What a cool intro track. Really gets you pumped. Has like almost a breakdown style. It's just very good. And then it kicks things off right into For We Are Many. There's so many badass riffs on here. Great record for that. And there's just a few songs like The Last Time and Won't Go Quietly, which are good songs. They're just not quite as good as the other tracks. But honestly, that's like the only downfall here. The back half of this record is so strong, like some of my favorite songs from the band, with a Dead Wrong, Faithless, and The Waiting One is another good example of them doing this slower, more like less heavy track, but really doing a good job of it. Great songwriting there. So yeah, I freaking love this record, man. I remember loving it even more when it came out. It did go down for me just a little bit over the years, but not by much. And yeah, you get songs like Hold On, which again is more of a straight up single, like again, more accessible, perhaps be able to play on some of the rock or metal radio stations, and it's still very well done. Like, I feel like that's what they were failing at on their other records. It's not that they were making acoustic tracks or these alternative type tracks, is that they just weren't as hard hitting as some of the other tracks they did this of the same genre, like Hold On. Like, they do such a good job at that. So yeah, that's what I think of this record. I think it's pretty banging. Almost every track is amazing to me. Up next at number 4, I'm going with the brand new Antifragile. Wow, what a surprise. Was not expecting this record to be this high, especially above like For We Are Many, but that could just because it's so new and fresh still. But man, I've been listening to this record for like 2.5 weeks straight at this point, and I'm still not sick of it. So safe to say that it's definitely in my top 5. But for now, it's at number 4. And yeah, I just love what they did with this record. They got Jason Richardson on guitars. He's been in the band for a while, but this is the first time they got to put out new music with him. And his style definitely shows on here. There's a few tracks where their guitars are very technical for All That Remains. It always sounds like All That Remains. They never break the mold, but he's definitely a different guitar player than Ollie. And there's a few tracks on here where you can tell he put a lot of effort into it in the songwriting, and it's just a bit more progressive and technical than what we've seen before with the band. They also got a different drummer on here, which he's pretty insane as well. I'm not too familiar with him. Anthony is his name. I forget his last name, but I'm not familiar with his other work. But damn, I'm glad he's here because he's doing a fantastic job. And they got their bassist, who was only on this Darkened Heart album. They got him back, which is really cool. I think he was touring with CKY for a while. So yeah, there's definitely a big lineup changes here, but man, I think it's for the better at this point. And looking at the track list here, there's really not one song I don't enjoy. They all get the thumbs up for me. They're all playlist material. Wasn't always that way. The first week or so I listened to this album, I thought half of it was really good. And the other half was just okay, but I really warmed up to it, man. It's so good. Songs like Divine, like that whole main riff, I think there's even a sweep in there. It is insane. Probably the craziest song. I wouldn't even attempt to play that song on guitar. And I do know a few All That Remains on guitar. I'm a rhythm guy to begin with, so I'm not going to attempt that. But yeah, songs like Divine, Antifragile, Poison It, Cut Their Tongues Out. Those are the songs you really tell that Jason had a big part to play in the songwriting. And I just love it. And like I said, it still sounds like All That Remains. He just made it a little crazier. But he's not changing it up too much where it sounds completely different. But yeah, Kerosene. I thought the lyrics were a little cheesy at first, but now I friggin' love that song. No Tomorrow is probably my least favorite, and it's still good. And it's a friggin' single on the record. Just another one of those good, accessible tracks. But Antifragile is heavy as fuck. Poison It, so damn heavy as well. There's a few times I'm like, is this Veil of Maya? Or is this All That Remains? The band's that good on here. So yeah, if you're not sure what to think about this band anymore, definitely give this record a chance. It's unfortunate that the band went this far with disappointing people in that over the years, that maybe a lot of people didn't check this one out, and they're only hurting themselves because it's so damn good. Recently I've been really into Let You Go. That song has just been playing over and over in my head. So hell of an album, great guitars and drums, good vocals, catchy choruses. There's a lot of early 2000s metalcore vibes on here, but at the same time, the production in that, it feels very modern. So yeah, definitely check this record out if you haven't already. It's a banger, that's for sure. Reaching my top 3, I'm going with the album Overcome from 2008. Hell of a record. I mean, hard to follow up Fall of Ideals, but they did a pretty damn good job while also tweaking their sound just a bit. This is the first time you notice them kind of being a bit commercial, but while never losing their heaviness. Songs like 2 Weeks is a good example of that. A song that could get radio play on certain like rock and metal stations, but it still has enough heaviness, some badass guitar and drum work in there to keep the metalheads happy as well. And I feel like this is the first record where we started getting the multi-layered vocals from Phil, where he does like singing and screaming at once on 2 different tracks, like on like vocal tracks, I mean, on the same song. So that was kind of cool and unique for this album. Production wise, there's something a little off about the mixing I always felt on this record, where I don't know, nothing's like as equalized as I would like with the bass and the treble and everything, but it's not terrible. It doesn't ruin the record or anything. It's just a bit off coming off the last 2 records, but I feel like they fixed that right away with For We Are Many. And again, looking at the track list here, there's not one bad song to be found. They're all thumbs up for me, and from this point on, opens up with a pretty heavy Before the Damned. And I love Phil's growls and stuff on this album too. They're pretty badass. Again, 2 Weeks is really kind of changing directions for the band, but while still sounding heavy and badass. We still got great choruses all throughout. Some of them sound a little boy bandish, I must admit, with songs like Days Without, but I still freaking love it no matter what. It's kind of funny because this type of music's not for everybody. It's going to piss off a lot of the elitist metalheads that they're going to say the choruses are too poppy. And of course, the people in the pop and that aren't going to like the verses on here. But the guitars are just so badass. Great riffs. Great everything. And they're starting to show you how they can write more softer songs like Forever in Your Hands. Great cover of Believe in Nothing. A lot of people hate that for some reason, but I always dug it. So another badass record from start to finish. Reaching my top 2. At number 2, I end up going with This Darkened Heart. Now, this and my number one are very, very close. They're kind of interchangeable depending on the day. I give them both perfect records. They're both 10 out of 10s for me. This one, they're both very similar sounding too, but this one just has a bit more death metal influence in there, especially coming off their debut, which was a melodic death metal album. They still kind of bring a bit of that over here, but at the end of the day, this is definitely a melodic metalcore record. A lot less singing too than The Fall of Ideals, which we'll get to, but it's still there, especially in the second half of this record. It feels much more like The Fall of Ideals. The first half is a bit more screaming for choruses and stuff, but yeah, just epic badass riffs all throughout this record. I feel like most people got into All That Remains because of the guitar playing, and this and The Fall of Ideals are the records for that, man. They're just full of tasty guitar riffs, and of course the songwriting all around is great, from like the solos to the catchy chorus. It's all here. But like I said, there's just much more death metal in this one. But yeah, not a bad song at all. They're all so badass. For Salvation, Tattered on My Sleeve, This Darkened Heart, and Focus Shall Not Fail are probably my favorites, but it's really hard to choose. Regret Not, Passion, they're all so good, man. I'm telling you, the guitars are fantastic. Back in the day, I remember I used to not like the chorus for Deepest Gray. I don't know why, because I freaking love that track now. There's nothing wrong with it. And there's really nothing wrong with any of these songs. And they're really fun to pick up your guitar and learn them too. Production's pretty great. Great vocals, great lyrics. Nothing bad to say about This Darkened Heart. I just hate that it's always in The Fall of Ideals shadow. Like, a lot of people overlook this album and don't even give it a chance. It's like, man, it's just as good as The Fall of Ideals. So definitely go check it out, and I wouldn't blame you for having this as your best record. But for me, coming in the first place, there could only be one record, and I had to go with The Fall of Ideals. Possibly the greatest metalcore record ever made, or at least melodic metalcore record. It just gets everything right from start to finish. I mean, any of these songs could have been singles. We do get quite a few singles in here, but it's never a dull moment. Literally, you could choose any song here to be a single. I would really wish I would have caught this on their last tour, because they just did an anniversary tour for this not long ago. I would have killed to see this. I guess they had to play the record from back to start, because you can't open up with This Calling. I mean, it's too much of a banger. And again, we're just looking at a perfect record here. You got This Calling, opening and things up. That's also a song made for Saw 3, I believe, which is really cool. I used to love how they used to make music for movies back in the day. Everybody had a soundtrack. So you don't see it as often anymore. But yeah, it opens up with that and Not Alone, two of their biggest songs. But It Dwells in Me does not drop. I mean, it's just as good. Everything's so good in here. Whispers. I like how they mix like acoustic at times into these heavy tracks seamlessly. The solos on this record are insane. Just some of the best solos ever made. Ollie, man, you're forever missed. I love the Weak Willed, how it's a straight up death metal track in the middle of this metalcore record. Become the Catalyst is another friggin' banger on the guitars. The Air That I Breathe is so good. Every track on here is amazing. One of my favorite records of all time. Would easily make my top 10 of any genre. It's 39 minutes, which just blows by. You could really listen to this record 2 or 3 times before you get through some other ones, and you would not be disappointed. It's just so good. What is there to say about this record that hasn't already been said? It's most people's favorite for good reason, and I mean, this and This Darkened Heart are just two of the essential metalcore records out there. So if you haven't listened to these, what are you waiting for, man? I know not everybody's going to be into the screaming mixed with the catchy, clean vocal choruses, but it just works, man. And look, when you got songs at 36 million plays and 21 million plays at this level of metal, you know you're doing something right. So The Fall of Ideals is easily my favorite out of All That Remains records. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. My ranking of all 10 All That Remains albums. Let me know what you think of the ranking, what you would have put at the top, at the bottom. Would love to hear it in the comment section. As I said, like the video, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any future rankings like this. And I hope you enjoyed it, guys. I'm not sure what band I'm doing next. This is always kind of random, but I know Killswitch Engage has an album coming out soon, so I might hop on to them. Who knows? But hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, guys, thanks for watching.